So, welcome to the meeting of full council this evening. I am the Mayor of Rugby, Councillor Maggie O'Rourke, and I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. This meeting is being web streamed to the public through the council's YouTube channel. During the meeting, if you wish to speak, please use the push button to talk on the microphone in front of you. Before we begin the formal agenda, I will ask the Chief Executive to provide details of the evacuation procedure for those present. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everybody. There's no fire drill scheduled in the building this evening, so if the fire alarm sounds, please make your way out of the main staircase and the main doors and congregate at the entrance to Caldecott Park, and an officer of the council will give you instructions to return to the building when it's safe.
Thank you. Are there any apologies, Chief Executive?
Madam Mayor, we have apologies tonight from councillors Mrs Hassell, Councillor Keeling, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Douglas and Councillor Willis.
Item 2, to approve the minutes of the meeting of council held on the 21st of February 2024. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the council held on 21st of February 2024 be approved and adopted. Who will second the motion?
I will second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Those in favour, please show. Thank you, that's carried. On to declarations of interest. Can I remind members that when they declare interest, they must also declare the general nature of that interest. Are there any declarations under non-pecuniary interest as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for councillors?
Madam Mayor, item number 6, the UK SPF Fund. I'm the chair of Rugby Swimming Club and there's an involvement, so I'll excuse myself from that part of the debate.
Councillor Moran. Also, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mine is in relation to Part 1, Item 6A2. As a member of Rugby Sport for the Disabled, that's the swimming pool fund. Thank you.
Moving on to item B, pecuniary interest as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for councillors. Moving on, C, noted under Section 106, Local Government's Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax. Mayor's announcements. Members, we were informed yesterday of the sudden death of a much-loved colleague and friend who had worked at the council for nearly 10 years across several teams, most recently as a customer service advisor. Our thoughts are obviously with her family, friends and colleagues at this very difficult time. I would ask everyone to stand and join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Following on, Rugby Brough Council will be 50 years old in April. The council was formed by a merger between the Rugby Urban District Council and the Rugby Rural District Council, which came into effect in 1974, when we were also allowed to use the borough name. There will be a number of projects and events during our golden anniversary year. More details will be announced in the coming weeks. I would encourage all members and officers to join in with these and celebrate this council service to its communities and the contribution of our residents. I just want to give a quick update in terms of the Mayor's charity. We had a very successful quiz night at the Bell the other week with a wonderful quiz master, Kevin, and we've raised just shy of £400 for the Myton Hospice. Last night there was a special quiz at the Seven Stars in memory of Brendan, my husband, and that raised over £800, and that'll be going to Hope for. And I'd also like to announce on the 26th of April, There will be a beach bingo evening at the Rugby Railway Club, and it will be in the name of Brendan again, because he used the club a lot and he knew everybody there, and they really want to do this for him. But the funds from this will be donated to the Rugby Club, which Brendan used to attend when he was a youngster. So I do hope you all, as many of you as possible, could attend. There's about 150, 160 tickets in total. They will be available very shortly. For councillors, 30 or 40 of them will be available through the Democratic Services Office, and the rest will be able to be bought at the Railway Club. Thank you. Moving on to questions pursuant to standing order. Are there any questions, Chief Executive?
Madam Mayor, there are 4 questions this evening. The first question is from Councillor Mrs Mackenzie. She submitted a question for the Leader of the Council and Regulation and Safety Portfolio Holder, Councillor Poole, regarding fly tipping at Linghall Quarry, Lawford Heath.
Have you a supplementary question, Councillor Mackenzie?
I have, yes, a brief one. The fly tipping, I'm really glad we had a great chat with Derek about this issue, and I know we're both a bit passionate about trying to get a bit more of a grip on it, but I wanted to ask him whether he would look out for what the best practices that other councils are doing, and we try and get a grip on some of the fly tipping and the littering that's going on in our borough, because there's a heck of a lot of it. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Yes, we do look at other boroughs, see what they're doing. And as I alluded to you over the telephone, there are enforcement measures taking place up there as we speak. And just to inform the Chamber that Councillor Mrs Timms and I both sit on the Linghall Liaison Committee, and the officers do know that we're working hard to try and prevent this. So yes, we will.
Thank you. Chief Executive?
Madam Mayor, question B is from Councillor Ms Livesey. She submitted a question for the Communities Homes Digital and Communications Portfolio Holder, Councillor Willis, concerning children and their families living in temporary accommodation. And my understanding is that Councillor Daly will be covering for Councillor Willis tonight. Oh, Councillor Poole will. Apologies.
So, Livesey, is there a supplementary question, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so thank you for the answer to this. It's quite reassuring, but I would like to know what is the longest period of time that a child under 10 has been housed in temporary accommodation.
Thank you, Councillor Livesey. As you know, Councillor Willis is not here. If you send me the question, I'll make sure that he gets it and I get a reply. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Chief Executive?
Question C, Madam Mayor, is from Councillor Slinger, and he submitted a question for the Leader of the Council regarding progress made by the Town Centre Regeneration Working Group and its work streams.
Have you got a supplementary question, Councillor Slinger?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Councillor Poole, for your very comprehensive reply. And thank you too to Nicola Smith and Helen Nightingale and her team for all the great work they're doing. As Councillor Poole notes in his answer, I'm a member of the Town Centre Regeneration Working Group, and along with Councillor Moran, we work very hard on that group with the other councillors present for tangible changes, to make those tangible changes come to life as soon as possible. Now, there is a £5 million fund available. Unfortunately, only 153,000 of that has been spent, which is only 3% of that total. Now, my question to Councillor Poole is, he listed out various work streams. He listed that some preparatory work has been done, numerous consultants have been engaged, but can he say when the people of Rugby will see real, tangible change? When will they see regeneration with bricks and mortar being deployed to deliver on those work streams? We need to know when this is going to happen It's urgent, and the people of Rugby need to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With your permission, I would like to put that question to Councillor Picker to answer.
Okay. Councillor Picker.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the comments, Councillor Slinger. I'm sure you've had the opportunity to read the agenda for the next meeting of the Town Centre Working Group, which I believe will be looking at some of those proposals, and I'm going to look to the chair of the working group just for a nod, looking at some of the proposals that have come from CBRE and how we can move those forwards and how we can actually get some of those projects delivered. Because you're right, there is a need to crack on and to ensure that money is spent in the town centre. On the subject of spending money in the town centre, I couldn't help but notice that you had a shindig this week for your other aspirations. And I was genuinely quite disappointed that you didn't choose to hold that in a town centre venue, which is where we will be holding ours.
I think restrained from...
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Order, please. Thank you. Moving on.
The
Any
final
more questions?
question, Madam Mayor, is from Councillor Moran, and he has submitted a question for the Leader of the Council concerning progress on developing an economic development policy for the borough.
Any supplementary questions, Councillor Moran?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Poole, thank you very much for that reply. I think there may be a little bit of a correction that you might want to make. It would seem to be slightly presumptuous to assume for a working group to be delivering in the summer when the working group hasn't yet appointed a chair. So perhaps you might want to come back and clarify the date for that economic development strategy. But I love your answer, completely agree. An economic development strategy is vital for the council, and particularly in regard to the local plan. I was particularly taken by the word vital. Vital is defined as necessary for the existence, it's indispensable, and it's essential. So on that basis, would you consider that the council was negligent in preparing the last local plan without an economic development policy?
Councillor Moran, thank you for the question. Thank you for your comments. Madam Mayor, may I again ask your permission for Councillor Picker to answer that question?
Councillor Picker.
Yep, happy to. I believe in being ambitious. I think this side absolutely does. So I don't think it's unreasonable to expect the strategy to be out for consultation in summer. I believe our first meeting is tomorrow evening, and I'm looking forward to it. And I don't agree with your final point.
Cabinet dated the 11th of March 2024. In submitting the report to Cabinet, if members wish to raise questions or to comment, will they please indicate they wish to do so when I call the item? Councillor Picker, will you move the confirmation and adoption of item 1 of the report titled UK Shared Prosperity Fund, Year 3 Spend? And who will second?
Madam Mayor, I so move. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I often say that it's a great pleasure to introduce a report, but it is particularly in this case. Before I come to the proposals detailed in the report, I do just want to touch on the work of the UK Shared Prosperity Funding and the local partnership group to date. So members will remember that last year we agreed year 2 spending, and key to that was nearly £250,000 worth of grant funding for businesses, community groups and sporting clubs, as well as targeted improvements to the public realm and wider support for businesses alongside our partners. To deliver this, we established a local partnership group, which brought together colleagues sitting around the chamber, officers of the council and a wide range of organisations that work in and across our borough. I do just want to thank one or two people, so Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Robinson for their work on the partnership group, our Major Projects and Economic Development Manager Helen Nightingale, the Senior Economic Development Officer, Karen Yeomans, the Communities and Projects Manager, Mary Jane Gunn, our Sports Development Officer, Thomas Parker, and David Phelan from the finance team. However, the partnership group actually went much further than just this council. We drew on support from the Chamber of Commerce, Warwickshire Carver, the Growth Hub and the FSB, alongside sporting organisations such as Think Active and, of course, our colleagues at Warwickshire County Council. And there is one other organisation that we worked with, particularly on the town centre business grants, and that's Rugby First. And I would actually like to place on record my thanks, and I hope the thanks of the whole council, to Linda Lone and Louise Fordham from Rugby First, who I know from my conversations with the businesses that I had throughout this process, that they worked incredibly hard to help businesses apply for the grants, to provide support, develop ideas, and spark a wider conversation along our ambitions for town centre regeneration. And partnership is a word that we do use quite often in this chamber, and I think it's perhaps one that we've all been guilty of occasionally using as a buzzword, rather than embedding it in how we do things. Well, year 2 of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund has been a genuine partnership. It's helped us to build relationships across the borough and developed ideas, and if that's all it achieved, I do genuinely think it would be worth it, but it's not. The report today, which I hope you will all support, sets out a detailed programme of investment for the first tranche of UK Shared Prosperity funding in year 3, alongside the existing commitments that were agreed to last year. We're expanding the business grants to businesses outside of the town centre and across the whole of our borough to ensure that that funding can benefit some of the great many rural businesses that we have in our villages and our rural communities. We're helping to deliver the Shopfront SPD, which went out or will go out for consultation in May, by providing a fund for businesses, both old and new, to deliver improvements and enhancements to their shop fronts so that the town centre can have a cohesive, clean and vibrant setting. As part of the town centre regeneration strategy, we're approving the creation of a business and community hub, and UK Shared Prosperity funding will be helping to deliver this, bringing together a single point of contact for a variety of our businesses and community groups. Finally, we're looking to approve spending on the people and skills priorities of UK Shared Prosperity funding. This will be delivered in partnership with others, as the report sets out, but I'd like to particularly highlight the proposals to help people back into work and the capacity to deliver on the green skills agenda, which will help our residents embrace the jobs of the future. In addition to the funding set out in the report, astute readers will have noticed that there's a remaining allocation of just over £886,000 for capital funding, and a further report will be coming to Council detailing how we're proposing to spend that. However, I can say that myself and Councillor Sanderson met last week, the week before, I lose track of time, with St Andrew's Church along with the Economic Development Officer to help explore options to incorporate the church into our public realm strategy and as a focal point for the town centre following the budget resolution last month, and I hope to be able to share more in due course. I'd just like to say it's been a genuine privilege on my part to be involved in this work, and I hope everyone will support the recommendation this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Sanderson, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I can endorse the comments by Councillor Picker. This has been a real partnership effort. I'm sure Councillor Robinson will also agree that there was a considerable amount of effort put in by a wide range of organisations right across Rugby, but in particular in terms of the town centre regeneration. Yes, the work put in from Rugby First, the voluntary and community sector, and our independent retailers was a standout factor. The other thing that we have looked at, and Councillor Picker touched upon it, is looking at community in place. If we want Rugby Town Centre to come back to being a good place for people to be, a safe place to be, a place that they want to use, then we also have to look at the community safety, the locality, and how we look after the town centre in terms of the public realm. And as I said, we had a very constructive meeting with St Andrews. I'm sad that no Labour member could actually make it, but it would have been. It was a very positive meeting that we had with St Andrews.
Any further speakers, please? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I would just like to echo, I have really appreciated being on that group. It was very much a very good piece of partnership working. And thank you to taking my collaborative challenges in good spirit, Councillor Picker. I look forward to continuing on the work if you're happy to have me. And I think the only thing that I would say, and that's something that I would appreciate greater clarity on, and this may be me as a new councillor, maybe I need to make more time and perhaps have a conversation with you, Councillor Picker, is to understand how these different strands of work actually interact and the money interacts with one another. So that when we're talking about UK shared prosperity funding for the town centre developments, we understand how that interfaces with promises we've already made, and how these things all piece together, which feels a bit complicated from where I stand. And so I would just like to be able to understand that better and for us to be able to communicate that really well with our residents. That's kind of really the only reflection I have at this point, other than say thank you very much. And yeah, good piece of work. Thank you.
Any further speakers, please? Councillor Picker, would you like to take your right to reply?
More than happy to. So I'd just like to agree with the comments that Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Robinson have made regarding the work of the local partnership group. I think there is more to build on a number of fronts, and I think what I would say is, I'm happy to have a chat with you and probably with Helen as well about how all these different things interface with one another and work together. I think the reflection I'd make on that is that we have a tendency to bring forward reports as discrete pieces of items, and that's the right way to do them. That's how they should be delivered. But I think a lot of these different things that we're talking about, the town centre regeneration, UK shared prosperity funding, climate change, they're not discrete pieces of work. They all work together. They are a thread that runs across everything that the council is currently trying to do, and I hope will continue to try and do. And I think you've perhaps touched on that we need to get better at communicating that, but I'm more than happy to have a chat elsewhere. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can I call on Councillor Daly? Will you move the confirmation and adoption of item 2 of the report?
I so move, Madam Mayor.
Who seconded?
I'll second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would you like to move the report, not remove it, move it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the 2023 spring budget, the Chancellor announced the Swimming Pool Support Fund, or SPSF, making available £60 million support for public swimming pool providers in England. Rugby Brough Council submitted the Phase 2 application in October last year, following support from GLL as the operator. Rugby Brough Council has been successful in securing £185,421 of SPSF funding for 2 capital interventions to be delivered at the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Centre. This includes £128,748 to fund the installation of photovoltaic panels, with £56,673 to be used to replace the remaining fluorescent lighting at the site with LED lighting. These interventions will significantly reduce energy consumption and operating costs for the operator, supporting the centre's sustainability. Combined, the 2 interventions will provide a reduction in consumption of approximately 131,000 kilowatt hours per year to the centre. This report simply seeks approval to accept the funding allocation and to transfer it to the operator as per the national guidelines. SPSF funding is specifically to be used as capital investment for swimming pool operators and cannot be retained by the council or used for other purposes. It must be passed on to the council's swimming pool operator, GLL. Rejection of this request would result in the funding being retained by Sport England. That's why I'm moving the report this evening.
Thank you. Any further speakers, please? No. Can I then invite Councillor Daly to sort of reply? No? Okay. I will now submit for confirmation and adoption of the whole report. In moving for confirmation and adoption of the whole report, this can take place en bloc or at any point, as we know, at members' request. A vote can be taken separately in respect of each report. Does any member wish for a vote to be taken in respect of each individual report? No? Okay. So, we'll move to the vote then. All of those in favour of adopting the report, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? No. Thank you. I will now... Oh, have I missed something? No, I haven't. I've gone too fast for myself. Number 7, to receive the reports of officers. The next item is to receive the reports of the Chief Officer, Legal and Governance, set out at item 7A of the agenda. The report concerns the use of Councillors Services and Councillor Mrs Robbins. Will you move the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I so move.
Will second it?
Second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Like to speak?
Just very briefly, Madam Mayor, I'm quite happy with this report, and I would just like to point out that councillors who would like a suffix, whether it be Mr, Miss, Mrs or whatever it is, they can actually apply to have that put in front of their names. And could I just say that that's always been the case, but it's always good to have it clarified and that members know exactly what they are permitted to do. So thank you for bringing that forward, and I approve the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers, please? Would you like a right to reply? No? Can I, where are we? I'm going very quick now. Okay. So, those in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you. So, next item is 8. Notice of motion pursuant to Standing Order 11, set out at item 8 of the agenda. There are 2 notices of motions this evening. In accordance with the Council standing orders, I consider that both should be considered and debated this evening. Councillor Mrs Leslie, will you please move the motion set out at item 8A of the agenda, notice which has been given under Standing Order 11?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The last council meeting I asked a question about the measurement of social value, and the Social Value Act was passed in 2013, so it's been around for 11 years. And the idea that we can only point 4 young people on work experience and some undefined curriculum enhancement at one of our 11 state secondary schools is really pretty shameful. So I think it's time that Rugby Borough Council stepped up and started to consider how the actions it takes makes an improvement to the lives of our residents. And this really isn't optional, it's the law. Social value is about understanding how decisions and actions that are decided on here in this chamber have an impact on people's lives. And for too long, we've been taking money off residents and not thinking about how we spend that money and how we use our influence to get more back in terms of that investment. And while you might not legally be required to put a pound value on it, if you do that, you get a quantifiable result that takes into account dead weight, that's what might have happened anyway, and the impact of doing nothing. Rugby Borough Council needs to up its game in this regard and start telling our residents how we're making their lives better for them. I'd just like to say that I'm accepting the friendly amendment.
Can I just check that we've got a seconder for... Yeah, okay.
Yes, I'll second, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Okay. Any more speakers?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to place on record my sort of support and real sort of pride in this motion coming forward. I think it's in many ways one of the best notices of motions that I've seen in my time as a councillor. And I was going to comment in relation to the previous motion talking about councillor Mr and Mrs and stuff, because I'm conscious that my colleague councillor Robinson posted details of that on LinkedIn, the social networking site for business. And I think it's fair to say the response was quite clear about bringing the council out of the dark ages. So with that in mind, I'd liken this to something similar, that it's almost incredible that a business, an entity, an organisation the size of Rugby Brough Council isn't doing this in a more determined way. So I just want to place on my record my thanks to colleague Councillor Livesey for fighting this corner so well. Thank you.
We move on. I've just been advised, there's two things actually. I've been advised by the Chief Executive that the friendly amendment's been withdrawn, and I've also... No?
Okay, my apologies.
I'm sorry. Can I also say that I should have said as well, item 7 of the agenda concerning the proposed additional resources in the election team within the council has been withdrawn. Sorry about that, I missed it. So, okay, so we do have a friendly amendment, so would you like to move it?
Yes, thank you. I'll move the friendly amendment. John, you're going to second it.
It's been accepted, hasn't it?
Do we need to, I'm happy to speak on it, but as it's been accepted, do I need to?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
Okay, John.
If you want to speak, that's fine. If you don't want to speak, that's fine as well. Whatever.
Okay. I'll just make one really quick comment, which is I think Rugby Brough Council is one of those anchor organisations in our area, and we've got a real opportunity to do good and to bring more than just bring additional value to our communities, and looking at social value is part of that wider benefit that we can bring. So I think it's, I think it's a good thing to actually measure that and be ambitious to achieve more, and be ambitious to, really make sure that every pound we spend and everything we do brings as many benefits as we can get from for our residents in every way, not just value for money, but skills and training and all the other things that get looked at under this. So I think it's a very positive motion. Thank you.
If there isn't anybody... Oh, there is.
There is somebody else as a seconder, actually. Although... everybody said everything, really, that I would have said seconding. Just to very briefly to sum up, it is usual for any investment to sort of, in any business, any organisation, to have intended outcomes laid out at the start. So yes, I mean, it's surprising that we don't do that more thoroughly, and we do need to do it. That if you're using public money, people deserve to know what they can expect to see that's new or different or improved as an intervention or project works. And they deserve to know whether the investment they've made has succeeded. It's kind of the so what, isn't it, to what you do. So we've put these things in place, we've let it run, da-di-da, so what? And if it's not made any difference to what's happening in rugby, not made any improvements, we need to be really upfront about that and learn from it and move on again and change and grow from that. That's really all I've got to say, but I didn't want to miss my chance, having reserved my right to speak, so I've spoken. Thank you.
Councillor Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think everyone's received this briefing paper, but I will read it out because it is very relevant to what we're talking about. The current procurement strategy, which was approved in February 2023 and presented as part of the budget booklet on the 21st of February, outlines all the strategic aims for delivering on our procurement applications, including social value. Indeed, social value is on the list of items considered at the inception of a new project, starting with planning, preparation and market engagement at Rugby Brough Council, and all through the contract lifetime, creating a mutually beneficial, open and clear working relationship between the supplier and the council that will deliver social value and potentially generate more positive outcomes through repeat business in future. The intention is that the process looks at how can the market be approached, what procedure is the optimum to be able to support SMEs, make tender documents accessible and does not place an unnecessary burden on suppliers. Within the tender pack, a pass-fail document includes social value document, which suppliers must select which initiatives, benefits they can and will support as part of the contract. And that is to the people of this borough. Budget managers are responsible for managing the performance of the supplier and that they are delivering any social benefits identified at the tender stage, again, to the people of this borough. Contract standing orders are written in a way that the applied thresholds allow for sealed quotes up to a specified value, that local and SME suppliers can be invited to tender for works and services and would be suitable for their company, ensuring that the contract spend is kept local and or within SME companies. Locally, contract managers' training for budget managers is provided on a cyclical basis to ensure they are aware of their responsibilities for all aspects of the contract standing orders, including social value. Social value, Madam Mayor, is written into everything that we do. Training also allows the procurement team to share developments or changes in policy that need to be adopted across the organisation. On a day-to-day basis, procurement support is provided widely by the financial services team, including specialist procurement advice, as well as more generic support from the financial business partners. Expected to go live later in 2024, the new Procurement Act 2023 puts a strong emphasis on social value all the way through the procurement cycle. The big difference for social value when the Act comes into force will be a shift from awarding contracts based on the MEAT, Most Economical Advantageous Tender, to MAT, Most Advantageous Tender. The wider benefits of the community that could be harnessed by the contract will be able to be taken into account when evaluating tenders. Any social value benefits are likely to be provided at a cost to the contract, so it is very much value for money versus value for the community that needs to be considered. Greater transparency and, it is a bit long, I hope I don't go over my time. Greater transparency and accountability in public procurement spend decisions has been built into the new Act, with obligations to publish information via transparency notices at various stages made available to the public. This includes the estimated value of the contract and the date when the contract will be entered into. This will provide insights for residents into how their taxpayer money is spent, what for and who with. In turn, this will place a greater emphasis on the need to continually track, measure and report progress, outcomes and alignment with initial contract requirements which will filter through the entire supply chain. As part of the transition to implementation of the new Act, officers will be working with partners at NBBC, shared services, that's Nuneaton and Bedworth, and wider networks, including the LGA, to ensure compliance is delivered. Rugby Borough Council procurement have already implemented many of the requirements of the Act into business as usual. One part which is being explored by the team requires that all public contracts with a value over £5 million have at least 3 published key performance indicators. This is not likely to be a significant issue given the activity of the organisation but could have more prominence in the future. The use of social value calculator is being explored with the risks and implications being considered. The use of a social value calculator comes with the risk of impacting on SMEs and their ability to compete for contracts against the large companies who have greater knowledge, capacity and skills to be able to score more highly in a social value evaluation of a tender. The contracts register may need to be expanded to include details of the social value benefits that have formed part of the winning bid and therefore increase the transparency and accessibility of the information to contract managers. Madam Mayor, we are doing it. However, I would like to say that That doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep looking at it, we shouldn't keep exploring, we shouldn't keep improving, and therefore I will support the amendment to the motion.
Thank you. Can I call on Councillor Slinker, please?
Yep, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Robbins. All I would say is the notice of motion, it seems to me, is all about Rugby Borough Council taking ownership. And it was very interesting to hear about the Act in great and minute detail, but that's what it's all about. And us having a mechanism of being able to track this in a way that is clear to us as councillors and the public more widely. And no amount of detail around the Act clarifies that in the way that we want. So that's what it's about, RBC taking ownership and being able to track this impact. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any further speakers? Any of those that... No? Nobody else? Are we sure? Okay, I'm going for it. So we'll be going with the amendment first. So we'll be voting on the amendment. All those in favour, please show. That's carried. I will now move it to a substantive motion and vote on all of it again. All those in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you. Right. So where are we now? No. So, calling on Councillor Robinson, will you please move the motion set out at item 8B of the agenda, notice of which has been given under Standing Order 11.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I so move.
We'll second it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll second it and reserve my right to speak.
Speakers?
So I understand there's been an amendment which the Labour Party, the Labour group does not accept. So I don't know whether we want to move to debate the amendment first.
The amendment would have to actually... The amendment has to be moved first of all. So until it's moved, you know, I'm calling on speakers. Who wants to speak? Councillor Daly, yeah, and Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I advise Council that we've withdrawn the Liberal Grant amendment. However, we've withdrawn the Liberal Democrat amendment. We're entitled to do that, Chair. However, I'm one of these people who's been cursed with a very long memory. And should the portfolio holder not deliver for this vulnerable group of children and these very vulnerable young adults, then I will certainly call this back into scrutiny to find out why you haven't delivered. This is an incredibly vulnerable group. I don't really like sort of pre-election gimmicks, so you're seen to be supporting everybody and you want to be wonderful to everybody, but you don't actually deliver for this very exceptional group. And I would say my granddaughter falls into one of these categories, and I have Fawsley House opposite Whitehall Recreation Ground, where we have some very seriously challenged young people with multiple disabilities. So say what you mean and put a budget to it so we can see that it's going to be delivered. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Daly.
Just want to start by thanking Councillor Robinson for bringing this to me. I think the day after the last council meeting, we had a cup of tea in the Bell and we discussed that you were planning on bringing this notice of motion forward. So I just want to start by thanking you for and giving me the opportunity to listen to some of your rationale for bringing this forward. And I really appreciate that. And hopefully we can work together to improve inclusivity across all council parks for children with mobility problems, physical disabilities and special educational needs and disabilities. This council has a long-standing commitment to working closely with residents to make sure we deliver facilities which meet the needs of children and young people within our communities. With parks, for example, we have public consultation, which is at the heart of our refurbishment programme and sees our Parks and Open Spaces team undertake a two-stage consultation process when undertaking capital refurbishment of our parks. The first stage inviting residents to provide their comments and ideas, and the second stage being on the design that is subsequently produced. A team worked closely with communications to promote the consultation and includes opportunities across various methods, including a dedicated web page for the consultation, social media promotion, direct leafleting of local residents, and consultation posters put out at parks being consulted on using appropriate materials. Our Green Space Officer also distributes information to any surrounding schools to the park. As an example, we are proud of the strong history of public consultation. For example, in 2022 at Glaramara Park, we saw a wheelchair-friendly roundabout and inclusive seat and cradle swing installed following resident feedback in the consultation process. As you can see, the views of our residents and users of our parks and open space facilities are integral to all park refurbishment that we undertake. As such, we are happy to accept Labour's motion as proposed to strive to ensure we are able to continue to hear our residents' voices and making our parks and open spaces enjoyable for all. I hope that the focus group in particular can improve our consultation process going forwards to improve the accessibility of all parks which are improved or regenerated in future years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers, please? Right, okay.
So I'd just like to speak in favour of this amendment. Some people in this chamber might know that I peripherally work in special education needs and disabilities. And last year, I think I read one of the saddest things I'd ever seen on paper, which was the comments of a group of teenagers with SEND who were saying that they'd like help to make friends. And that really gave me pause for thought. So I think anything that we can do that means that we have a more inclusive approach to our parks and open spaces, especially for when children are quite young, that will help them making friends and learning to socialise with others. And I think we can't do it soon enough.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had prepared a speech. However, I'm not going to go through it because it does feel that the energy in the room is behind this motion. And I'm really pleased to hear that. Just to add some rationale to this for anybody that might be looking and say, well, why? You know, this is very specific. The motion is very specific and it mentions Caldecott Park. So just to kind of go through that rationale, the motion is based on research and engaging with a resident who assists with the care of a young disabled person. That young disabled person, their family, Rugby Autism Network, Warwickshire Carver, attempted to get in touch with Rugby Disability Forum, but that's not currently up and running really, and officers, other councillors. So it's informed by a lot of background work. And getting into the weeds of, you know, how and why are we where we are and how could we do better. And I do want to just say that, you know, we've got 5, you know, green flag parks. We do a very good job with our parks, and I am grateful to the work of the teams. But this is one of those domains in the world where there is really no, you know, we can all keep doing better. And I really appreciate Adam listening and understanding that and taking that on board. So with that in mind, the reason why it's starting with Caldecott is because by my assessment and conversation with Adam, I think that's the earliest we could get started in revising our sort of end-to-end process around this. There are 3 parks that have just gone out for consultation this week. So I do believe Caldecott is the earliest. However, if there's any opportunity to do anything sooner, then great. And I do think that myself, you know, I'll be following up with the chief officer in this area to see if we can do some work with those early 3 parks. But in terms of reimagining and re-engineering what we're doing end to end, I think Caldecott is the place to start. The first bullet point does very much reflect a conversation that Councillor Daly and I had. And it reflects conversations I had with everybody else along the way who essentially said they'd like to have a voice and that they would like to be heard in terms of what would make parks more inclusive for them. And to give everybody a sense of what I'm talking about here, I'm not necessarily talking about tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds on new equipment. I am referring to sometimes it's just the basic stuff. So when I went to the park, you know, I can't speak from the family or from the young residents' viewpoint, but I can speak about what I observed. I went to Corston Big Park, went through all the parks across Admirals in Corston over 2 days to do my research on this. When we went to Corston Big Park together, the pathway to the play area was too narrow for the wheels of his walker to stay on the path, and the path itself was made of loose stones, and the grass either side was 4 to 5 inches thick. So, you know, imagine bearing your weight on a walker that's sliding and skidding around, and, you know, it's quite a long distance actually to get to the play area. It looked exhausting and unsafe, and it didn't need to be. So I'm talking about engaging people to understand how we get, you know, in some instances, get the basics right. And, you know, how, when we install an accessible fort, let's make sure that the ramp or the step to get to the accessible equipment is in itself accessible, the sighting. Yeah, so that's a flavour of where it starts. The bigger picture, the bigger ideas, investing more money, bringing in, you know, big, new, expensive equipment. Yeah, we could do that. That's stuff to aspire to. But I'm really keen to get started as soon as possible with this stuff. The second point brings in intersectionality. And again, I need to say thank you to the officers who raised that on my awareness. It wasn't something that I'd considered before, about how there can be some bias in how playgrounds are designed more typically around activities that boys prefer. That's not to say boys and girls always fall into stereotypes, but there has been a trend that's been measured, researched. So I think we need to be mindful of intersectionality when we are taking that forward, and Councillor Livesey has also educated me on that point. So we've got some knowledge among the officers and councillors on that point, and let's make sure we think about that when we take this work forward. The third point is about publishing that co-produced list. So, you know, from that focus group on Caldecott Park, we can come up with some new principles to add to the current existing design protocol. Again, this is not new budget. This is saying we've got a process at the moment. We have a design scheme. How can we improve that to drive more inclusive decision-making based on what residents are telling us? And the fourth point then is, having brought those people together, we can create a community of interest that continues over time as we, you know, do the work to embed the learning. So I just wanted to say all that to make it really clear, make sure it's really clear what the motion is about. I do understand that Councillor Daly does understand what it is about. I appreciate what Councillor Sanderson has said. I think if the Liberal Democrat or anybody wanted to bring forward a motion around how we do the bigger picture on this and how we go for gold once we've got this work started. You know, if we want a task and finish group that's set up by scrutiny, all that kind of stuff could follow. I'd really love to get this agreed and get started as soon as possible. So thank you all for your support. Thank you.
Any further speakers?
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. I just wanted to say once again, to put on record my thanks and my appreciation for my colleague, Councillor Robinson. It's a really important motion, and I think it can make a real difference to people's lives. Equally, to extend our collective thanks to Councillor Daly for engaging so meaningfully. I want to touch on Councillor Sanderson's point and to emphasise that need, that desire to start delivering and to be accountable. It's something that we feel very, very strongly about. But also, I'm just conscious that without these two notices of emotions that we're talking about, one talking about assessing and quantifying social value, and a second talking about looking at inclusivity and accessibility in play parks, is it me, or is it just a bit incredible that we're not doing these things already? And that it's taking an opposition group to put these things forward? It really is quite incredible that in 2024 we've got to be putting these motions to get them to your attention. But ultimately, it's nice to hear you speak, because it's the first time there's been any energy from that side of the chamber all night. And I understand your numbers are depleted, and presumably some of you are off with reform or whatever it is. But at this stage now, this agenda, without the points talked here from this side of the chamber, how poor, how weak is that agenda for taking a town and a borough forward? there's nothing substantive in the agenda. So you're here to do a job, you're in an administration to lead it. Can you please lead it?
Any further speakers, please? Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Everything's been said, but I did some research and I think I'll pass this on to Adam. Barnet Council. Sorry. Okay then, Councillor Daly. Barnet County Council have done a brilliant project. It's on Sky News on the 24th of February. I'd love to have that ambition for rugby will be the next news story. And I think that would be great. So Scope are doing a lot of work into this. And also another company called PIPA Play. They're a social enterprise as well. I'll pass the details on to you, but it'd be great to get these guys involved and these will get it sorted out. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. Right, any... Oh.
There's always one, it's usually me. I mean, we were having such a good meeting as well, because I genuinely felt there was a sort of general consensus across what was going on. I think, you know, sometimes my day job is the House of Parliament. It's not been particularly edifying on any side recently, if I'm entirely honest. And this evening we were, I thought, having a pretty positive discussion about the work that's going on in the residents of Rugby. I'm not really sure that you'd call the amount of funding we're putting forward as a small item on the agenda, but don't know, not developer money, I guess. I think what I would say is I mean, I check my emails relatively regularly. There was a press release on how we're consulting about bringing some of these measures forward, literally issued this afternoon. So I think I'm just really disappointed by the change in tone, and I don't think it's actually conducive to our residents, if I'm honest.
Thank you. Any further speakers? If there isn't any further speakers, I will call on Councillor Robinson. She has the right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't think there's a great deal to reply on. It seems that there is going to be a consensus around this, and I hope that however the tone has changed, that in taking this vote, we will send a very strong and positive message and leave this debate with a positive tone. Thank you.
Okay, so there's no more speakers. We're at the end of the debate, and I'm now going to move the motion before you to the vote. All of those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's carried. Item 9, motion to exclude the public under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972. So to consider the following resolution under section 100A(4) of Local Government Act 1972, the public will be excluded from the meeting for the following items on grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of information defined in paragraph 1, 2 and 3 of Schedule 12A and of the Act. I so move. Who will second the motion?
I will second the motion, Madam Mayor.
In favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you. Concludes the public part of the meeting. Please can we turn the light